Hello YouTube and welcome to my channel. I figured I would kind of start with a little bit of a history on the car and a little bit about who I am, what my plans are, what I'm gonna do with this car. This channel is pretty much gonna be about this build. I don't have a bunch of cars to work on. I don't have a ton of money to buy a bunch more cars, and I also don't know really anybody who's into these cars anymore, as most of my friends that I used to roll with back in the day have moved away, sold their cars, all that kind of stuff. So kind of the only one left with these things right now. As time goes on, who knows? Things may change a little bit. We may expand. We will see. But as of right now, it's pretty much just gonna be about this build. But hey, good news is that it's gonna take a while. I got a lot of work to do on this thing. I'm pretty much gonna be going from square one on a lot of things with this car. So there's gonna be plenty of content. So a little bit about myself. I am from Northern California, Greater Sacramento area to be more specific. My first Fox body was a 93 GT, and that went through a couple of front ends before some girl smashed into me in a parking lot, and the radiator support could no longer handle a new radiator support, I guess, or the car couldn't handle a new radiator support. So that was the end of that car. Unfortunately, I had just got a sweet paint job on it. I worked in body shops for about 5 years, and it was a beautiful metallic red, tiny tint of orange to it, and I had just painted some flames on the front that were absolutely gorgeous. Just got done cutting and buffing those flames, and I think the second day I was out with that car, that's when that happened. But I had also just put a new crank in the car. I had some bad underdrive pulleys. Specifically the crank pulley had a tiny crack in it when I got it, and I didn't know it. I got it from a friend and I didn't inspect it well enough, and it ended up breaking the harmonic balancer bolt inside the crank. There's really nothing I could do about that. I tried getting it out, wouldn't come out. So anytime you get used parts like that, especially when they have to do with a rotating portion of your engine, inspect the crap out of them, guys, because you don't want to end up in that situation. I got lucky and had a buddy's dad who worked on a lot of muscle cars and everything, who offered to help with that whole process, because to be honest, at that point in time I was like 20, 21, little in over my head. So that was great to be able to get that done, but nevertheless, I had a good motor and a beat to shit front end. So I decided that what I would do, I wasn't done with Fox bodies, obviously. So I decided that I was going to just kind of take out what was good on that car and put it into something else. I didn't know what. And so I'm sitting there, car in the garage, and I'm pulling everything off of it, and this guy comes from around the corner in the cul-de-sac and says, "Hey man, looks like you might need a new Mustang." And I said, "Yeah, it does look like that." And he goes, "Well listen, I've got this 88 GT that's just been sitting in my driveway for 2 years, totally beached, hasn't moved, tires are flat. It ran when I parked it, but I don't know anything else about it." And I remember seeing that car, driving down the street a few times, and to be honest with you, it looked kind of beat. And so I was pretty hesitant about it, especially when he said he wanted $2,000 for the car. And I kind of didn't really think it was worth it, but it gave me a project. And I went over and looked at it and went, okay, I can use this off the 93 and that and blah, 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 blah. He had 2 new fenders for it, because the fenders looked like they'd been kicked in a couple of times. and I figured I'd just use the ponies off of my car because he had some 5-star rims that were in real bad shape on there. So I got it. And when I got home, I shortly realized that that $2,000 was money well spent, because when I got it up on jack stands and got underneath it, built 355s. Well, that was looking at the receipts because he didn't remember anything that he had in it. Built 355s, one of those heavy duty aluminum differential covers. That's cool. Aluminum drive shaft, Tremec 3550 transmission. It's got 73 millimeter calipers, a big old master cylinder, a Willwood proportioning valve. It's been lowered with the Eibach Pro Kit, strut tower brace, subframe connectors. It had a K-member brace on it that I ended up taking off to do something on. I can't remember what it was, and losing one of the bolts, so then I couldn't put it back in because I just never got another one of the bolts. Either way, I mean, the car had a ton of really cool parts on it. So basically, you know, in my eyes, after looking at all that, I got a bunch of cool suspension parts, you know, slightly upgraded brakes, and, you know, kind of a shell that I could put together. So I went to work, I put those new fenders on, I put the doors from my 93 on there because those were still in good shape, and the doors he had on there were beat from people trying to break into it and busting the lock and, you know, denting the whole thing in. You know, and I just kind of pieced together what was good on the body of the 93 into this 88. Put the pony rims on. Let's see, what else? Put the 93 seats in because I've never been a fan of those bulbous headrests on those earlier seats. So got those in there. They look a lot better. Still have a little bit of the gangster lean to them, as most Fox bodies tend to do. But basically, I drove it around for a couple of years like that. I just tossed all these parts on. I wasn't real careful about fitting it, you know. I was careful enough to make it look decent, but it wasn't exact. That's a big part of what I'm, you know, what's ahead of me here. So drove the car around for a couple of years. At the time, I was working 3 days a week in construction, going to school for a while, and I had no money. I was paying rent, you know, all that kind of stuff. I just had no money. So when something would go wrong with this thing, which they tend to do, I was kind of screwed. I remember pulling out on my driveway one day, driving down the street, get about a quarter mile away from my house, and I hear something pop. And I go to press on the brakes feel weak, and I can hear something rattling around in the back wheel there. Turn around, go home. All the springs and shit had completely busted apart inside the drum. So, you know, that's a cheap fix, and I got that one done. But when the power steering pump went out, I had next to no money. I was playing drums in a band. That was my main focus. I also had another car. This wasn't exactly a priority for me at that point in time. I don't remember how much the power steering pump cost, but I don't think it was that much, but time, money, blah, 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 blah. So the car kind of sat. I eventually put a new power steering pump in. By that time, the registration had lapsed. Once again, didn't have the cash to pay that steep fine, because here in California, the DMV is a bitch. And if you're late, you pay. So the car basically sat. That must have been, last time I drove this car, was probably in the neighborhood of 13 years ago. Well, no, not the last time I drove the car. The last time the car was actually out on the road. So I kept it running, all that kind of stuff. Once I got the power steering pump fixed, and I drove it from, I moved a couple of times during that process. Drove it from place to place, except for when I bought my house here. Then I had it towed here because it's probably about 8 or 9 miles away and it wasn't registered, so that wasn't going to happen. And then here, I've started it like 3 times and it's just sat. I had it up for sale for a little bit, had a couple of people come by here at Run, give me insanely lowball offers, like to the tune of $750 to $1,500. I was asking $3,500 for the car, guys. Like, that's not that bad. With what it's got in it, you know, to somebody who doesn't know what these cars are, maybe that's going to be, you know, a little much to ask, but somebody that does, no way. Guy came, you know, sent his brother from Texas, told me that his brother just gets these cars and beats them to shit and then dumps them off and buys another one. And, you know, that guy offered me $2,000, but to be honest with you, he could have offered me $5,000 and I wouldn't have taken it because I don't want that to happen to this car. So basically, I just kind of sat on it, meaning to do stuff to it the entire time. Not really ever getting around to it. Every once in a while, I'd get a wild hair up and do something. Started blacking out the interior a few years ago. Got about halfway with that. That's it. So just recently, within the past month or so, I was out here looking at it and I just went, you know what? Shit or get off the pot. Do something. And that's when I decided to get serious about it. So first step, I know the gas is fucked in this car. It's just awful. It's been sitting, I haven't put new gas in it in 13 years, at least. So, replace the gas tank, you know, drain the fuel lines, make sure that everything coming out of the fuel lines doesn't look completely awful. Like if it runs out, then it's okay. If it feels like there's any clogs or there's anything else, then, you know, probably not. So we'll see about that. But got an insane deal off of a guy on Craigslist. $30 for the fuel tank. Damn thing looks brand new on the inside. Ordered a new fuel pump and sending unit for it. And it's a really good thing I did because I knew I had a 255 LPH fuel pump in the old one, but I did not realize what kind of shape that thing would be in, and it was awful. I think I tossed it, actually. I think I threw it away. If not, maybe I'll pop a picture of it in somewhere. But I mean, just the bracket was gone, the fuel pump was gone, everything was gone. Called the guy back up, he had a bracket. Bracket looked brand new. Awesome, that's in. That was a little bit of a chore. I probably should have done a video on that, but I didn't. And there's plenty of other videos of people putting fuel tanks in these cars, so I'm sure they'd be more informative than mine anyway. So that's pretty much the long and short of it. I put, you know, this car had like 7 different colors on it one time, between the 88 colors, which was originally that dark blue and gray on the bottom. And then my Mustang was red, and then I had primered stuff on it, and then there were, you know, there were just a bunch of different parts. So basically I just went and went to the, you know, the automotive paint shop, got some DuPont Hot Rod Black, which I actually really like, and threw it on the car. It's a satin black. It looks awesome when it looks good. Over the years, I've spray painted things in the garage, blah, 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 blah. Overspray's gotten on it. Bottom line, it needs a new paint job, guys. Like, there's no 2 ways about it. It's getting sanded. Got a bunch of little dings in it here and there, probably 4 or 5 of those that are gonna get taken care of. And paint job's coming. Haven't decided on exactly what I want to do with that yet, but it's coming. That's gonna probably be closer to the end of the build. So anyway, I think that what I'm gonna do, been a little long-winded, so I think I'm gonna split this up into 2 videos. That's just the introduction video of me and the car. Next, I'll kind of just take you around the car and show you what's going on with it. So stick around.